and welcome to another episode of the Mission TV show, part of the series that we're taping here on the showroom floor, the exhibit hall floor of the 2015 General Conference in San Antonio. We're so glad you've joined us. And joining us now is Eugene Prewitt. His brother is Michael,
yes,
who I used to work with at 3ABN years ago. But Eugene has been the teacher in the worldwide AFCO training centers. Yeah, you've been in how many different countries recently?
My wife and I have traveled to over 40 countries during the last 10 years of our marriage.
Wow, so you've gotten a vision of the worldwide work in a way that many people will never have.
I have seen right on the ground the way the work is going in many parts of Asia, Southeast Asia, and North Asia, yes.
Okay, so the 40 countries have just been in the Asia area.
No, but that's where I have a burden because that's where we have so much more to do than we've done.
Okay, there's so much more to do than we've done. Do you have any statistics on that, on Asia? I'm with Jesus for Asia, so
sure.
I have a heart there too.
So let me speak to a minute. I was at the MENA booth just yesterday where they have a neat little illustration. It's an entire box full of black beans.
Uh-huh.
It's about 130,000 black beans,
uh-huh,
and in there they hide one large white lima bean. And they asked the children to try to find the lima bean,
uh-huh,
because that's like trying to find a Seventh-day Adventist in parts of the 1040 window. You know, Asia.
How many white beans?
One white bean and 130,000 black beans. That describes the Middle East. Now you come to Asia where I'm looking at, we have far more Adventists per capita,
uh-huh,
but we have 100 times as many people. So that you have 1/4 of the Earth's population just in 2 countries. And if you take it all, it's about 40% of the world's population is in the general region of Asia.
Wow.
Most of them in non-Christian neighborhoods.
Yeah, I understand that the majority of the unreached are in Asia.
Yeah, the majority of the lost are there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so what have you seen, what does that actually look like when you're on the ground, when you're trying to generate some work, generate some interest, work with the church? What does that actually look like? What are they faced with? What are the challenges that they have in trying to spread the gospel?
So I could feel like I could give an hour-long answer to the question you just said, but let me name some things that are interesting to me.
Okay.
I observed that the workers in much of Asia have not had a proper training, so that how much they know about Adventism is much below what it ought to be.
Okay.
That words like ORL Crozier, or like scapegoat, or like the Day of Atonement, or like preparing for the seal of God. Now, many of these ideas are not even registering in the consciousness of the workers. And if they're not in the mind of the workers, they're never going to end up in the minds of the converts. They're not going to become part of what's going on in the churches. And how is the seal of God going to be put in the foreheads of people who don't even know it exists?
Yeah.
How are we going to have the latter rain where it's most needed if we don't even have the truth there about what the latter rain is?
Wow.
I see a burden for really training the workers to a higher level of professionality in reaching souls.
Okay. What does that look like in terms of available literature for, let's say, what does a normal pastor carry with him when he goes into sermon preparation and shepherding his church?
When you talk about literature in Asia, you're talking about a big headache, because there are dozens of languages, sometimes in one country. And the number of Adventists in one country in Asia often is not sufficient to warrant having a publishing house.
Uh-huh.
So you're not going to have your own publishing house for each of the little nations in Asia.
Okay.
When it comes to what a pastor has then, they don't have really quality resources.
Mm-hmm.
Often what they're getting is something put out by a Westerner or an American, and whatever the philosophy of that particular person is, that's going to be the philosophy that's in that paper. So we do need a higher quality of literature as well in our training programs and to the pastors.
So many of these pastors may not have very many Ellen White books.
Well, they don't have. Very few of Ellen White's books have been translated into the languages of Southeast Asia, and even in languages where they have been translated, often there hasn't been a system for distributing them to poor people.
Okay.
Most church members are poor.
Okay.
So what we're looking at doing is training in a training center. I haven't even mentioned that training center yet, but I hope you'll ask me about it in a minute.
Yes.
We have a training center where we're going to be training Southeast Asian persons to understand English at a higher level, not just to be able to read random literature, but we're teaching them how to read Ellen White's books, how to comprehend the English so that they can make, let me try to start this sentence over so you can see it. Ellen White writes on a 12th grade level for most people.
In America.
In America. And when you want to translate that into a foreign language, you have to hire a way above average quality translator to understand her materials. But unfortunately, that PhD translator translates into PhD level destination language,
Right.
which means that Ellen White's books are out of touch with the local people even when they get translated.
Right.
What we want to do is take common people and teach them how to understand that high level of English, specifically in the materials they're translating, so that they can make low-level translations and make those available in Southeast Asia to the people who need to read them.
Okay, so this training program, start out with telling us about this training. You're in a transition period.
I am. I've been traveling with AFCO now for years, but I want to plant myself in one place and bring together our brightest minds in Southeast Asia and give them a training. I want to say it's going to be similar, if this registers with any of your hearers, similar to what is found at Ouachita Hills College in Arkansas.
Okay.
In fact, the institution I'm working with, ANON for Asia, is supported through Ouachita Hills. There's a relationship between those two organizations.
I see.
I'm on the board of Ouachita Hills, and we want to start a mission training program there, a 3-year college program that is going to train Asian persons to know real Adventism, but at the same time to work with our church's most talented teachers. Global Mission, for example, Gregory Whitsitt is in charge of the Buddhist Center. He'll be coming. Petrus with the Muslim mission of Global Mission, he'll be coming. We've scheduled him. We're working with ASAP and Jesus for Asia and with Adventist Frontier Missions. The world's strongest mission organizations are saying their best talent to train the people who are going to be in this institution so that they can start the work in Asia on the ground like it should have been started long ago.
Wow, that's fantastic. So it's a 3-year program.
Yeah, that's a bachelor's program in the British system. Our American system has a 4-year bachelor's, but 3 years in the British system.
Okay, so does it include a lot of general studies, or is it mainly pretty focused into...
You know, the British system never has had a lot of generals. It's different in the American system.
Okay.
And in our program, I don't know, we haven't named our major yet. Theology sounds like the wrong name because every class is mission oriented. Every class is aimed at increasing the efficiency of someone who is giving their entire life to reaching souls in Southeast Asia.
Every class. So let's say you have a history class.
A history class would be only the history of the Adventist church and the Christian church, focusing on the lessons that can be learned in history as they relate to mission and as they relate to the doctrinal issues we're facing in the end of time.
Okay, so you might even include the Great Controversy.
The Great Controversy especially is how the Great Controversy relates to Islam and to the sending forth of workers after the time of the end in 1798, the opening of the Bible societies that came after the French Revolution. But of course, even the Reformation history has many lessons for our workers. Learning how God has worked in our past prepares us for the revivals of the future.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so then these 3 years, how far do you have the curriculum developed, or are you still in what stage are you at?
We
now?
have the entire curriculum developed, but it's not in hard concrete, it's in wet concrete.
Okay.
And as I'm negotiating right now with the various teachers and tweaking what they know and what they're best at, there could be a change, but within 3 weeks of the close of GC, we will have a handbook produced that will have in hardening concrete our entire curriculum and even a large number of the professors who will be teaching the classes.
Okay, so when are you planning to launch the first year?
My wife and I are moving in September, and we're going to open the first classes in January.
Okay.
Towards the end of January. And really, there's going to be an orientation program there that goes through the Chinese New Year. That's February 8th this year.
Okay.
So we'll start the primary training just after the Chinese New Year.
Okay.
In Malaysia, there's no sense doing anything before Chinese New Year. That's taken too seriously there.
Okay. So then, who is available? I mean, who can apply? What kind of people can apply?
We're willing to accept students from any region of the world. But those who come from Africa or from South America or from Europe or from the United States, here's who we're looking for. We're looking for someone who's willing to come to a place where there are less Adventists and spend a good portion of their life there working.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want to come from Angola or from the Caribbean or from Germany, come. But when you finish the training program, plan to stick around a while.
Okay.
There's no sense learning at our institution if you're not going to use it.
Okay, and what kind of opportunities are available for people after they graduate?
So I think I mentioned to you who the instructors are, some of them working with the mission sending organizations. Those mission sending organizations, those teachers are going to get to know on a very personal level the students. And when they see a young man or a young woman, they will know where they want to use them.
Okay.
There's nothing like working with the people who do the sending to find a right place to work.
So you're actually doing job placement during the training.
Job placement by association with with those who do the hiring.
Yeah.
My peer work at GC, I've been going booth to booth to those who do the hiring of workers to negotiate with them about how to send their best people for training. Yeah.
Okay, so, but of course job placement may be the wrong term in this context. How do you, what's your view of the workplace versus getting a job versus doing a job?
I think I know where you're coming from. I'm not sure, but I will tell you that if there was no one to hire Jan Andrews and James White, they would have kept working. And no one hired Martin Luther to do the Reformation.
Exactly.
And no one hired Ellen White to be a prophet.
Exactly.
If we want to get the work done, at some point we might have to do like LaRue did. LaRue was that elderly man who wanted to go to Asia, but he couldn't get the brethren to support him. So he went himself, he supported himself, and he got the work started. We want to train our young people. If no one picks them up, God can pick them up. There's plenty of work to do for anyone who's willing to do it. And the truth is, the founder of Anon, David Fahm, had that mentality. He went with no money, no one hiring him, and raised up an entire institution. He can mentor young people by experience. I've had that same experience, Brother Wood, going with no money and no support and raising up an institution. We can both speak by experience that you don't have to have someone hire you to get something done.
Right, and so that pioneer mentality,
we have it.
The walking by faith mentality, Matthew 6:33 mentality, going forth to do God's work as the highest honor.
That is. And at some point, we're going to have to figure out how to reach some of the dangerous to reach people groups in Asia.
Yeah.
The ones that are protected by law and by threat.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing that you're centered. You're going to be located in a place that provides ample opportunity for witnessing.
That's exactly it. The number of people in Malaysia that are Christian is small. And trying to learn how to reach them, the ones that are Malay, those are the Muslims, is going to require every bit of tact and institutional skill. What we don't want to do, Brother Wood, is get the institution shut down by the government.
Right.
Because if a man is martyred, that's a great thing. But if a school is shut down, that's not such a great thing.
Right.
So we're going to have a high level of tact and skill.
Yes, and so you're in a place that it's actually illegal to proselytize.
In Malaysia, it's even illegal for Christians to use the word Muhammad, to use the phrase people, the book, to use the word Quran. There are very backwoods laws trying to protect the Muslims from the light.
Right. Well, what's interesting, though, is that we identify ourselves as Christians. But in many regions of the world, a Christian is somebody that goes to church on Sunday, smokes, eats pork, sleeps around, drinks alcohol. I don't do any of those. I don't know about you, but
I eat, but I don't eat pork.
Glad to know you eat. So it's like if we see ourselves as Adventists first in some of these contexts, that can open some doors, don't you think?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think the young people are going to be exposed to the methods that work by the people who are using them. Yeah. What I've been doing here, Brother Wood, I've been going to the Muslim ministries that are represented here. There's about 9 of them. And really pushing the buttons to find out what are the results, what's been going on for the last 10 years, where are the real Adventists. When you're all done with what you're doing with them, do they know about Ellen White? Do they know about the judgment? Do they know about the heavenly sanctuary? Trying to find who is really successful with the students' message. And we're bringing the people who are in so that they can reproduce their concept of how to reach that class of people.
That's wonderful. And not only the location immediate surrounding you, but that area of the world.
We got Indonesia, where we can actually send people to practice. I've already trained workers in Indonesia, even in the literature work, that have sold over 11,000 great controversies just in the last 3 years.
Wow.
And that's, of course, that's in Java, which is one of the most central parts of Islam for the nation of Indonesia.
Then you've got, within 3 hours, 3 hours, hop over to India. There's Hinduism. You just go right up from there, maybe an hour flight up to
Bangkok,
Thailand, where you've got Buddhism.
That's right.
And then, of course, you've got the Muslim, that whole area right in there.
And
so
you
it's
have Laos and Cambodia and Vietnam right there. Atheism, animism, Buddhism all mixed together. And our closest working relationship is probably going to be with the nation of China. China, I was sitting yesterday with the China mission.
China Union Mission?
China Union Mission.
Okay.
And they don't have any ability to set up a real theological training program for their pastors. But we are working with them to train. For 10 years already, David Pham has been training Chinese nationals, bringing them out of China, training them and sending them back with support from donors to help cover the tuition for those people.
That's fantastic. So this is I think it's groundbreaking, and I'm so excited that you're doing this, because it's the training and the lack and the level of understanding that has not been there. And it's wonderful to have that. I know I work a lot in Thailand, and I'm just appalled at the fact that there's no Ellen White books in print. I went found a young lady that was and a Christian, and I wanted to give her a Steps to Christ. So I went back to the mission, the headquarters of the whole nation. Didn't have it. Steps to Christ. And it had been printed long ago, but there was no funding to reprint. And so this is something that needs to change. With 96% of all Christian giving going to the 7% that speak English, there needs to be a shift. And in that shift, Christ promises amazing blessings for his church.
And you know, something else, we need to get translations of paragraphs and pages available on social media. Because even in the poor countries, they have their phones. And people who won't afford a book can read online. As soon as you end up producing material in a destination language like you have there, you're doing something that very few marketing organizations have done, because there's not enough money in it.
Right.
So when you put something out there, you're putting it where it's going to get attention.
Right.
Yeah, that is part of the plan of us to get even our students doing decent translation of elements materials, getting them available online so that people can use them. They can have access on the phone. They might not have a whole book. It might not be Desire of Ages, but it will be pithy statements.
Yes.
If the world had ended in the 1860s, we would have only had early writings, and it would have been enough to get us through.
Wow.
And we want to work with the pithy, powerful things that are needed for the new believers. We know what those are.
Okay, so let's say somebody wants to, this is college level stuff, so the main qualification is be at least out of high school.
That's right, a high school diploma, or you need to have some equivalent.
Now in that area of the world, would it be less expensive to get an education there than, let's say, one of our colleges here in America?
We're going to have two pricing structures, one for Asian students and one for non-Asian students.
Okay.
For the Asian students, it's going to be approximately $2,500 US 1 year, room, board, and tuition.
Non-Asian students?
No, for Asian students.
For Asian students, okay.
For non-Asian students, it's going to be just over $3,000.
$3,000
room, board, and tuition for a year.
Including what you eat and where you stay.
That's right. And it looks like, from talking to sponsors here this week, even some of the textbooks may be sponsored.
Wow.
Because there are people who have a real heart for training people to work in Asia.
So $3,000 per year, that's 3 years, that's $10,000 for a bachelor's.
That's right. Compare that to, well, you can just do the math anywhere else you are.
Okay.
Now, I should say something. In a Muslim country, you can't have a Christian college be recognized. In Malaysia and many Asian countries, recognition is given by the government. So this is going to be an unrecognized degree. But that doesn't bother us a bit, because it's going to be recognized by the same people who are going to hire the graduates. That's by the ones doing the training. And they're looking for, what do you know, what can you do?
But you're coming from AFCO, where I've seen a lot of AFCO graduates, which is only like a 6-month, 4-month program?
That's right.
They actually end up becoming pastors.
That's right.
In the churches.
And it won't surprise me at all when the world learns the kind of quality of students coming out of this institution, there's going to be a demand to hire them. That's what we've had already with Ouachita Hills, that they're not accredited.
Right.
We've had that kind of demand. So I really expect, I don't just say expect, God does not give counsel about how to train people in such a way that if we follow it, there's not going to be a place for them to work.
Right. Oh yeah, and they get hired by God. Who can beat that?
That's right.
I'm really excited about what you're doing because it's ever since I spent 8 months in Thailand just a couple years ago, that has been my biggest burden, is because I see the lack of trained, committed workers, pastors, Bible workers in a country like Thailand. And I can't imagine going into countries that don't even have their resources. And so I see that they're having a hard time even fulfilling the basic needs of what's already existing in their churches that are already established, much less expanding into parts and territories that aren't, like even in Nakhon Sawan, which is just 3 hours north of Bangkok, a city of 3 million people. There's not one single Adventist there. And I can't imagine the other places. You look at Indonesia, we have a map right over here that shows the unreached languages, and it's like there's probably, I would guess, almost 1,000 languages.
So I could perhaps crush myself just thinking about all that needs to be done in Asia.
Yes.
Instead, I'm going to wear myself out training young people, and each one of them can take one of those burdens and run with it.
Yes.
And I tell you the kind of help we need, because I think maybe some of the people watching this might be in a position to help. We need sponsorship for students.
Okay.
What God has given us already is the buildings. We already have the structure. What we need is sponsorship
for students.
We could set our tuition much lower, but our counsel in running Christian schools is to use the tuition to run operations.
I see.
And when we get that sponsorship for the tuition, we will not have any trouble filling up the places in the school.
And this is a part of the world that is dealing with poverty.
That's right.
And so the sponsorship can take somebody that's desperate, in a very poor situation, would love to, loves the Lord, would love to be trained, but there's no source of income in their families, and many of the believers are coming from non-Christian families and are opposed to what they're doing.
That's the truth, and I've been careful in talking to those who might do recruiting for the school to tell them that we don't have room for everyone that wants to come. Please send us the earnest, the intelligent, the ones who are ready to try their best, and that's going to create an atmosphere in the school of excellence that I know what it's like to teach those kind of young people. It's a privilege. Nothing satisfies me as much as being in a classroom with the kind of students we're going to have in the school.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited about this, Eugene, and want to know, how can people get in touch with you? How can they support this project? How can they sponsor students? And where can they follow the development of this program?
So, of course, at Jesus for Asia, that's a 4 instead of the letters FOR, you can learn something about our project.
Okay.
If you want to know more, I'm going to give my personal email address.
Okay.
That's Advent, as in the Advent of, Adventism, ADVENT, and then Expositor, like a newspaper, EXPOSITOR @gmail.com. I will communicate. Anon does have a web page.
Yeah.
That's www.aenon.org.my.
Yes.
And you can learn plenty there. I don't know how soon you're going to get this edited and distributed, but by the end of July, there'll be a lot more information there about the training program than there is right now.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's Aenon, AENON.org.my.
That's right.
And then JesusForAsia.org. You can also, on Mission TV, the Mission TV website, you can go, if you want to donate, just click on that button that goes through Jesus for Asia, but just put a note in there that this is for sponsorship and the Aenon. What are you going to call
Mission Training School. We're going to come up with a better name, but right now it's the Aenon Mission Training School.
Okay, so the Aenon Mission Training School, or just put Eugene Prewitt Training, Malaysia, something like that, and we will funnel 100% of that, 100% of those donations straight into that project that Michael is working on. Also, if you go to the Jesus for Asia website right now, on the donate, and then there's a list of all of our projects. He and his wife are listed in there, their project. You can donate directly to his transition, his wife's transition, through that invest page. But we're going to develop a page, hopefully on Jesus for Asia, that's going to give you more of this information as it develops. If you know some young people that are mission-minded and that want to get an education and are a little bit turned off by, my friend graduated from a well-known Adventist college 15 years ago. In the last 15 years, the tuition has doubled. But job income has not doubled. And so this is a serious thing. There's a sermon on Mission TV that says that and the title of the sermon is "Don't Mortgage the Mission." In other words, don't put your mission in jeopardy by a massive mortgage on your getting your education. This is an amazing place, an amazing opportunity, amazing teacher. This is going to be just groundbreaking, and I encourage you to support this thing with everything that you have: prayers,
Amen.
finances, youth, even older people.
Yeah, we're happy to have adults. Jesus trained some older people.
That's right. Okay, so anybody that is interested in this is like a foot in the door. We just praise God for what you're doing, Eugene. Glad to be a part of it. And,
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, God bless you.
Thank you for being a part of this show. As you can hear the music back here from the choir that's singing live, we're on the exhibit hall floor of the General Conference 2015 in San Antonio. God bless you until next time.